everybody, and welcome to the Commander Pod, your Magic the Gathering podcast for all things Commander. I'm Spencer Simpson.
And I am Kelton Howe. We are coming at you live from the past. We are pre-recording a couple of extra episodes since I'm going to be traveling. It'll be a little bit more difficult to record. But we have a couple of special, I think, fun episodes coming at you over the next couple of weeks. And this one I'm so excited for because we finally get to do a deck tech of one of Spencer's favorite and I think coolest decks, and that's Garth.
Yes, we're doing a Garth one-eye deck tech. I think this is the coolest deck. It's my favorite deck for sure. Probably not the coolest deck. There's really cool decks out there, but I really like Garth. I think Garth is so cool.
It's impressive to watch. That's why I think it's so cool. Like watching this deck play, it's such a toolbox of really amazing effects, powerful effects, and it kind of can go crazy in a lot of different ways, and that's really exciting to play against.
Yeah, so when I was first getting into Commander, I was looking through 5-color Commanders because who doesn't want to build a cool 5-color deck when you're first playing? And I remember seeing Garth and being like a little bit underwhelmed with what Garth did. Like I was looking at the spells you could cast, and I was like, "Oh, Braincatcher, it's like an X draw spell. That doesn't seem that great, or whatever." And then I played against a Garth at a local like Commander Con at my local game store, and it was in a pod where actually there was like a really high power player as well, and the Garth was like kind of running the table. But they played like a Miri's Wake. No. Is it
Mirari's Wake? That
Mirari's
Wake, mana, doesn't it?
Yeah. It was a Mirari's Wake, and so with Garth out, they could just hold up a Disenchant or a Terror, or like you could just hold up your stuff to be able to cast it. I thought it was just so sick, and so it inspired me to build a Garth deck. This is the latest iteration of my Garth deck. It had started out kind of looking one way. It pivoted into a much higher power version of Garth, and then it kind of moved away from that because we were trying to... I wasn't able to play it ever. Most of our play group played mid-power. And so I wasn't able to pull out Garth as often as I would like. And it being my favorite commander and my favorite deck, I was disappointed by that. And so this is the latest iteration. The iteration, honestly, that I first did to like power it down, I was kind of flippant about and put in just a bunch of cards that weren't particularly good because I was like, whatever, let's just like be able to play Garth in a pod with somebody.
Sure.
And this iteration is me trying to get it back to, doing the thing, playing efficient cards, not just like wasting card slots on stuff that I don't feel like are thematic or contributing to the game plan, but still trying to stay around mid-power.
Okay, so this falls in mid-power then. And where does it fall in terms of brackets?
I would say this is probably bracket 3. I would say solidly bracket 3 because of what Garth is able to do. Now, I will say I've actually yet to play this specific iteration of Garth.
Because you've made recent
a couple
updates.
recent updates, because there were a couple cards in here that were really making this deck pop off. Like it was...
okay.
Yeah, which felt... Maybe in bracket 3 was probably okay because it's not playing any game changers. It's just Garth is kind of unassuming in what he's able to do. And so...
Yeah, one thing that I've noticed playing against Garth and watching other people play against Garth is it feels like there's this really big setup for Garth. And so you kind of don't worry about it. Like it's a 5-color commander. It doesn't do anything until you tap it. And then even when you tap it, you still have to pay for the thing that you're conjuring up with its ability. So it kind of feels like there's so much overhead to this card that you don't worry about it until it's too late. And, it's able to pop off.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of how it's gone. I think, clearly having access to Black Lotus, like the most powerful card probably ever, is incredibly good. But you only get to do it once, right? Ostensibly.
Yeah, and late in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess we'll talk about some of the strategies of this deck, and hopefully it'll become apparent. And we'll talk about some of the cards I took out, too, and why they were maybe too powerful for what I was shooting for. But if you're building your own Garth deck, would be really cool cards to think about including in your deck. And should we just hop into it? I think the first thing we want to talk about is
Start with Garth.
Yeah, why do we want to play Garth? I want to convince other people to play Garth because I think Garth is potentially one of the coolest commanders out there. And
can you read Garth as well?
Yes, that's a good idea. Let's read Garth. Garth One Eye is Wooburg for a 5/5 legendary creature human wizard at Mythic for Modern Horizons 2. And
can I say, honestly, up to that point, it already feels so flavorful and cool that it's a 5 mana, 5 color, 5/5, and like just as pure old school Magic as it gets. It's a legendary creature human wizard.
Yes,
that's so 100%.
Cool. I love the flavor of Garth, and I love the flavor of Garth. I'm gonna finish reading him, and then we'll talk about the flavor of Garth. So you tap him to choose, and you choose a card. So, okay, here's the thing that's interesting. The only cost is tap, and I play this wrong all the time. So, there's like no cost. I guess you choose the card name. Once it resolves, you choose the card name.
Yeah, the only thing that you have to declare when you're activating the ability is you're activating the ability.
Yeah, that's crazy. So, let's see. Really? So I don't have to choose at all until
because it's part of the activation.
Yeah, that's crazy. Okay,
yeah.
So you tap Garth. Once it resolves, you get to choose a card name from among Disenchant, Brain Geyser, Terror, Sheevan Dragon, Regrowth, and Black Lotus. You create a copy of the card with the chosen name, and you can cast the copy, but you still have to pay his costs. Notably,
you can only do one of each per instance of cards,
yes.
right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
The beginning, it's kind of deceptive because that's at the beginning of the clause. It's you choose a card name that hasn't been chosen. Yes. I think I might have skipped over that, so I'm sorry. Yes, that hasn't been chosen. I'm really setting myself up to be a Garth expert here by not knowing that you didn't have to choose when it taps and skipping the hasn't been chosen part.
That's because you just play it. It's second nature by now. You don't think about how it actually works.
Yeah, we've played it enough that I remember how it goes, but important to know. And the flavor text of Garth, because we were talking about the flavor, I love this flavor text. It says, "A humble appearance belies a master's skill," which I think is just so cool.
And the art is so good too. The stained glass window with like the 5 different colors. It's just so good.
It's so good. He's got the eye that's like got magical essence coming off of it. You can kind of see right here. Amazing. He's got his staff. He kind of feels like in any show, like the old or semi-old like wizard or like retired general or whatever from any of these archetypes, which I think is so sick. And so that's kind of one of the themes I was trying to build around this deck, which we'll get into later. But let's get back into it. Why do we want to play Garth? You kind of hit the nail on the head. Garth is an amazing toolbox commander because you have all of these spells. So you have draw in Brain Geyser, ramp in Black Lotus, like the best ramp in the game, interaction in Terror and Disenchant, and also kind of Sheevan Dragon if you need a blocker, which is crazy.
Yeah, that is cool.
And then you have recursion in Regrowth. And the important thing is you have all of those things at instant speed, which is pretty nuts if you have the mana to cast them.
Yeah, because as soon as you activate Garth and his ability resolves, then you get to cast that spell. That's the only opportunity that you have to cast that spell, and it ignores timing restrictions for the spell.
Yes, correct. Some of these are sorceries. Brain Geyser is a sorcery, I believe. Is Brain Geyser a sorcery?
I would guess so, but also Sheevan Dragon.
Sheevan Dragon's a creature. Black Lotus is an artifact. So
Regrowth is a sorcery.
Is a sorcery. Yes. So you do get to ignore timing restrictions, which is again one of the best parts about playing Garth. So if Garth is so good, what is the catch? You mentioned one of them. It's that you have to actually pay the cost for these spells, and that was one of the things that originally turned me off to Garth. Was that like if it was a free cast, like that's freaking cool, but the fact that I have to like spend X blue to cast a Brain Geyser is pretty nuts. To spend the mana to cast a Disenchant and a Terror when there are things like Swords to Plowshares, Path to Exile, and stuff like that exist. Like that's not as exciting. Another catch would be that you have to untap with him, or I guess that he needs to not be summoning sick to be able to activate his ability. So you need to generally make it one turn cycle before you're able to use Garth's ability. And then the last one we've already mentioned is that you only can do each thing once, which are kind of the downsides of playing Garth.
And I would say that he's 5 colors.
And that he's 5
it's
colors.
not easy to just hit 5 colors.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. I think, to put aside your worries about the first part of this, which is that you actually have to pay the cost for these spells, I think what I have done actually today, as I was thinking about how I wanted to talk about this, and I think the way my brain has reframed it, and mostly my brain has reframed it because I've just seen Garth play and I know what Garth is capable of. And so I'm like, yeah, Garth is sick. This is awesome. And I like Garth to begin with. But I think the way I started thinking about it today is, sure, I have to pay the cost for these spells, but you just always have access to 5 extra spells. Like the fact that as soon as you play Garth, you have a Brain Geyser, Disenchant, Terror, Shiva Dragon, Regrowth, and Black Lotus available to cast for you is pretty nuts. It's like drawing 5 cards. It's kind of like
it draws you 5 cards. Yeah,
exactly. Cool. And they may not all be the best cards ever, but they're good. So I think that's that is a way to reframe that idea that you have to actually pay the costs.
This is such a cool card because it feels so much like the conjure stuff from Alchemy, where you like conjure copies of cards into your hand. And this was like before any of that. And it's really cool that the way they made the ability actually work, and it actually works so cleanly. It's amazing.
Yes, I think it's really cool. It makes me. Can I tell you one thing that I want is I want some more lore around Garth. I really hope Garth shows up at some point in like a future set, and it's gonna be tough because there's not like, I don't know how they do Garth again.
I assume he's from Dominaria.
I think he's from Dominaria. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how they would do that, but yeah, I think it's really cool that it feels like their first iteration of trying to do that conjure stuff like in paper, and then they just printed Oracle of the Alpha into
Mystery Booster.
So those 2 weaknesses that we talked about, the needing to untap with him and only being able to do each thing once, we're trying to overcome in this deck with kind of our big 3 value or enablers for Garth. The first being haste enablers, so we can activate Garth the turn he comes down. The next one being untappers, so we can activate Garth multiple times, which turns into like Black Lotus, and then a terror with an additional mana or whatever. You get to be able to utilize Garth several times, and also with flicker effects or blink effects to reset Garth's abilities. So, like we talked about, the goal is to be mid-power. We're trying to do those powerful things. We're notably not including some really busted things that the deck originally included. One of the coolest combos, I think, with Garth is that you can play Displacer Kitten and Deadeye Navigator. And if you have a haste enabler, if either one of those comes down and you get to activate Garth to cast a Black Lotus or any of the non-creature options, you get to flicker Garth, use the Black Lotus, get another Black Lotus because you have a new instance of Garth and a haste enabler, which triggers Displacer Kitten. And you go through the loop with...
You make infinite mana.
And then you can mill everybody out with a Brain Geyser. You can make everyone draw their whole deck with a Brain Geyser.
Yeah, that's sweet.
Which is kind of cool. It's the same thing with Deadeye Navigator, except you have to have blue mana to flicker Garth, and then you net 1 blue mana each time you sacrifice a Black Lotus to activate Deadeye Navigator.
And there's a lot of redundancy because you could also create infinite Shivan dragons that have haste if you have haste online too.
Yes, yeah, totally. Yeah, so there's lots of lots of cool ways to combo with Garth. This deck is intentionally trying to avoid any infinite combos. I need to double check in Commander Spellbook. I typically put decks into Commander Spellbook to look for combos and how I can add additional combos. I recently played some games with people online from our Discord, which was very fun. Garth did way better than I was expecting him to, and I'm worried I undersold Garth's power. And they were like, you should check on Commander Power Level or Commander Spellbook to see if you have infinite combos. And I totally just like face palmed because, why would I not do that?
Yeah, to make sure it's not running any infinite combos.
Yeah, exactly. So the plan is to do that once I reach a spot that I'm kind of happy with the deck. And we'll talk about some of the cards that I ended up taking out because they were adversely impacting that goal. It was to not have infinite combos. So we have our enablers. We know what Garth does. Garth is a great toolbox. Let's talk about the game plan of Garth. And then eventually we're going to get into talking about specific cards in this deck, which I think is the real deck tech here. I think it's just important to talk about, what we're trying to do. Because Garth, because of these tools that Garth has, Garth inherently, to me at least, is kind of a control deck. Or a mid-range to a control deck. Because you have the card draw and the removal and the recursion in the command zone that you're able to leverage to try to stay alive until you can get your Garth game plan going. So early in the game, like any mid-range to controlling strategy, you're trying to ramp early, and we're trying to shape our hand for our plays in the mid game, which is to cast Garth. We're trying to get Garth out in the mid game.
And when you say shape your hand, you're looking for those 3 enablers, right? You're looking for the haste, the flicker, and the untap.
Yeah, those sort of things. You're looking for protection. The nice thing about the flicker in this deck is it does double as like single target protection. So I really try, unless I have a haste enabler on the battlefield, I try not to cast Garth unless I have a flicker effect or something along those lines, because the chances of Garth in our playgroup making it a turn cycle are like relatively slim. Yeah,
it's because we all know better.
Yeah, well, just as any powerful commander should be, right? In most of our our play sessions. So yeah, when we're shaping our hand, we're looking for those sort of things. We're also just trying to dig for our other mid game plan, which is our untappers and our tap abilities. So this deck has a lot of untappers and a lot of powerful tap abilities on creatures and artifacts. And we're trying to get those down during our ramp phase, during kind of our build-up, so that in the mid game we can be capitalizing on those, and then casting Garth, and then getting out big threats with Black Lotus, handling existing big threats on the board with Terror and Disenchant, or casting a Brain Geyser to draw a bunch of cards to get ready to have a very explosive turn the next turn. So, and then in the late game, the goal is to win with a giant, let's find these cards, with a giant Crackle with Power, because this deck turns into inherently a big mana deck, because we have a lot of our powerful untap abilities are big mana producers, and we can untap them a bunch. So we're trying to win with either a giant Crackle with Power or a giant Doppelgang, both of which are just like absolute game enders. Yeah, they're really fun, and they feel like fit in the flavor of the deck. Which I think
powerful mage casting a giant spell.
Yes, exactly. That's that whole like exactly. Your Gandalfs or your Dumbledores, though a much younger version type of thing. I think that's kind of what this deck is going for with like our win conditions here. So that kind of brings us into some of the themes of the deck, which would be that like the old master, right, type of archetype that I'm trying to encapsulate. And part of the way we're doing that is by playing 3 mana pip. You can see 2 here. Genesis Wave and Insurrection are 2 of them. I'm trying to play at least 1 3 mana pip card in each of the 5 colors, because Black Lotus allows us to cast those pretty easily. But I also feel like they're pretty thematic in what Garth is trying to do, where he casts 1 spell of each of the colors and an artifact as well.
That's cool.
So yeah, so we're trying to do that. We're trying to tap and untap, and there's also a little bit of a wizard sub theme, because I wanted there to be like some cool, all of these powerful wizards have connections with other powerful wizards, so we're trying to get some of them along for the ride. So that's kind of that's our little debrief about Garth. That's our TLDR, our Garth primer. Do you want to get into talking about some actual cards in this deck? We don't want to talk about all
I'm
of
excited.
them. I've been debating how I want to go about talking about these. Should we go around with maybe some tags and some vegetables first, and then talk about some just notable cards? Okay. Yeah. So let's start by tag here. I do have some tags that are just that I have yet to clean up, it looks like. So most of these are global tags that I just have on. If I put this card in a deck, I tag it with this. For card advantage, we're mostly playing. We're trying to put as many effects as we can on creatures or artifacts that tap, because we can untap them and try to abuse that with a lot of our untappers. So we have things like Kitza, Lauren that draws us a card, Arcanus the Omnipotent that's a big wizard that draws us 3 cards when it taps, and is also 3 blue pips. So it kind of fits in the theme here.
Cool. I see Shorakai on here.
Shorakai taps. Kenrith is a little bit of a sneaky include here. I just think Kenneth is so cool, and it's just
it's the other 5-color commander. It's
the other 5-color commander in the deck. Yeah, exactly. Plus there's got to be some sort of like thematic of like Garth and Kenneth being buddies or whatever. I don't know. I just think it's cool. So we're trying to put as many things as we can on tappers. Flame of Anor's in here because Garth is a wizard and playing other wizards, which I think is kind of fun. Frantic Search, we have because it untaps lands. And as part of our mana base, because we're untapping so much, we're playing a lot of bounce lands that tap for 2 mana. So bounce lands have the downside or upside of putting a land in your hand. Upside being you have a land drop per later turn. Downside is they enter tapped. But they tap for 2 mana. So when you're leveraging untappers, instead of getting 3 mana off of tapping a bounce land 3 times, you're getting land 3 times. You're getting 6 mana off of tapping a bounce land 3 times. So something like Frantic Search is really good in that regard. And then just some general good card draw stuff here. We're mostly relying on Garth, to be frank.
That's what I was going to ask. Was how did you mention that Garth has card draw, removal, a creature, ramp? How did that factor into how much of each vegetable include knowing that you had some in the command zone already?
Yeah. So most of the card advantage that we're trying to play is most of the point of the ramp and the card advantage is to get to a point where we can cast Garth. Is the point of most of this. The interaction less so. But the interaction is most of the point of the interaction is to be able to protect Garth. Now we do have some like good card draw spells here and stuff like that, and good interaction and just like good ramp. But the hard part is if we can't cast Garth, we can never cast a Brain Geyser, and we can never cast a Terror, and we can never cast a Black Lotus.
When we talked about card advantage in our power level series, we talked about the difference between like smoothers and refillers, and I remember a previous version of this deck list had more of the refillers. It had like Finale of Revelation and like some other big draw spells.
Yes.
And it seems like you found you're anchoring on Garth to cast Brain Geyser as the refiller. So a lot of your card advantage is actually just smoothers to help you shape your hand. Is that kind of where you landed with this?
Yeah, absolutely. An earlier edition of this was playing like X. We were trying to X spells was one of the themes I was kind of relying on, and so I did put in Finale of Revelation and Blue Sun's Zenith and some of those some of those big draw spells. But I ended up moving away from those because Garth has Brain Geyser stapled to him, and so most of what we're trying to do here, I've since pivoted to trying to lean more heavily on creatures. Kitza I think is a fun one in this deck because it's a wizard. It's a wizard that taps to loot, and you can also copy a spell. So if I cast a big...
Cool. A Brain Geyser, you can copy it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's cool.
Exactly. So there's... I have leaned more towards things that are shaping your hand because the point is to get Garth out. And we're not going to be able to get Garth out if we're trying to cast like a big Finale of Revelation or anything like that. So that's our card advantage. If we go down to our ramp here... it's kind of the same story. We're trying to do a lot of creatures. We have the obligatory Soul Ring, Arcane Signet in here. Wild Growth and Utopia Sprawl are trying to do this similar to what the bounce lands are doing. Wild Growth, I think, is the better version of this because it can enchant a bounce land. And so a bounce land, instead of tapping for 2 mana, now taps for 3. And when it untaps, it taps for another 3 and another 3, which is pretty good.
Are you on Lotus Field?
I'm not on Lotus Field. You mentioned this last time. Should I be on Lotus Field? It makes you sacrifice 2 lands, right?
Yeah, it's a land. You sack 2 lands, and it taps for 3.
Of one color. I should probably be on Lotus Field.
It might be good. It's also pretty flavorful with Black Lotus.
Yes, yeah.
Which is kind of cool.
I'm just plucking Black Lotuses out of the Lotus Field.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
Okay, that's
maybe not, because I know that your bounce lands are also fixing your mana because you're in 5 colors, and Lotus Field doesn't do a good job. It
does not fix your mana very well. Yeah, one to consider though for sure.
Yeah, I was just curious.
Yeah, no, I'm not. I'm mostly on just your standard bounce lands. I had a list of the number I was playing for each of these. I got pretty scientific about it. I saved it in the primer, put it in the primer, forgot to click save on the primer. But I'll have to talk about the mana base, I think, a little bit later because I don't want to get too much into it. But we're just trying to cover our bases here, basically. So mostly green because we need to get out our ramp and our mana producers. Secondarily blue. White is our third color because a lot of our untappers and stuff are in white. We have a lot of like Azorius going on. And then pretty minimally red and green, or red and black, but still a fair percentage of our decks or of our mana base can produce that color. So we're basically not playing. I think we're playing all of the shock lands except for the Rakdos shock, and then we're playing only like 7 fetch lands. The fetch lands that can possibly get the fetch lands that possibly get Simic colors, I think. And so we're just trying to like fix and make sure we get our green or make sure we get our blue, but also
because a lot of your ramp here is green, and a lot of it is 1 mana green ramp.
Yeah. And I'd considered putting in some other green ramp as well, like a Paradise Druid, which is the hexproof one, right? Stuff like that. I do have Ornithopter Paradise in here. I was trying to get as many creatures as I could because of some includes I have in this deck that I'm really excited about for recurring of some of these abilities. 2 of the later includes in this deck would be, here, let's get rid of tags really quick, and we can talk about them that I'm really stoked about. Hazel's Brewmaster, to be able to exile some of these creatures and get their tap abilities on foods and activate those tap abilities.
Yes.
And then Agatha's Soul Cauldron, because I had an Agatha's Soul Cauldron and had been looking for a deck for it.
Nice.
And here's what's really cool about this. If Garth gets destroyed and I need to like all in, I can exile Garth with Agatha's and make one of my other creatures have Garth's abilities, though I do have to keep Garth in exile. So it turns off Garth for the rest of the game.
Yeah, that's true.
But for every creature that has a +1/+1 counter, they have Garth's abilities.
They become a Garth.
That's
pretty cool.
And so it's kind of a cool...
That could be a very splashy way to end a game.
Yeah, it kind of is a cool panic button at the end of a game if I really need to get Garth on stuff. So that's why I'm putting as many things as I can on creatures. And one thing I'm actually kind of stoked about with Ornithopter Paradise is that it's an artifact creature. And one of our cards in here was Teferi, who slows the sunset. That its +1 is to untap an artifact, a creature, or choose an artifact creature and land. Untap the chosen permanents you control and tap the permanents you don't control. We're planning on untapping our own permanents. And so if I happen to not have like a Soul Ring or something out, but I have like a Mana Dork and an Ornithopter Paradise, I can count that as my artifact.
That's cool.
Untap that. So I think it's not always going to come up, but I think will be relevant. And I think we've talked about this. Ornithopter Paradise is just slept on because it's colorless ramp.
It's really good. And a creature if you need a chump blocker.
And a flyer that you can pump to attack with later if you need to. Yep. And all sorts of things. So a lot of the theme here is trying to be tap untap for most of what we're trying to do for our vegetables. Even some of our interaction, we have like Avatar of Woe and Marieki that tap for the removal, Mother of Runes that taps to give protection.
Cool.
And then a lot of our interaction here is trying to keep Garth alive. So Final Showdown kind of doubles as both. We'll protect Garth, can also remove something else. Also, I'm counting it as my white 3-color pip spell because it's to cast the board wipe side. It's white plus 3 white, so it's
nice. Very cool.
3 white pips, yeah. But we have stuff like Cloud Shift, Ephemerate, Legolas's Quick Reflexes.
That's disgusting. Yeah. Legolas's Quick Reflexes is extremely good in Garth.
It's exceptionally good in Garth to be able to do something with him again. Yeah, it's really fun.
Yeah, that's cool.
So yeah, that's in terms of vegetables, that's where we're at. Let me think if there's any. Maybe let's talk about some of the neater includes in here.
Yeah, there are cards that I had a bit of a reaction to just seeing them in the deck list.
Yeah, are there any specifically that you want to talk about?
Just looking at the ramp, cards that I've just seen overperform so much in this deck are like Bloom Tender, Fabro Elder. They produce so much mana. That's kind of like where the big mana aspect of this deck comes from, I think. Between that and like untapping your bounce lands.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Yeah. Bloom Tender and Fabro Elder are kind of the big two in terms of trying to get a lot of mana. And the thing that's really nice about them is that I can use them to pay for whatever colors I already have to cast Garth. And if I happen to have an untapper, I immediately untap them, and they tap for 5 mana, because Garth
it's amazing.
5 colors.
We've talked about it in our play group. Like, at which point are you supposed to interact with Garth? And I think where we landed was like the problem was much less Garth, and it was more so like the Bloom Tenders and the Fabro Elders and some of the untappers. Like, it's actually some of the enablers that make Garth very difficult to deal with, and not necessarily Garth himself.
Yes, yeah. I think that's 100% true.
If you've never played against this deck before, or if you've only played against it a couple of times, that is extremely difficult to recognize.
Yes. Yeah, because you don't think... I mean, obviously, everyone knows Bloom Tender like can produce a lot of mana.
Good. Sure.
But you don't know that it's going that's going to mean that I'm going to draw 15 cards on the next person's end step before my turn.
Yep.
Because I can keep untapping it. So, yeah, these two are kind of all-stars in terms of the ramp aspect. One of the ones I took out that I might put back in, I just took it out because I don't have a copy of it, is Timeless Lotus. I have that in my sideboard here, I think. I do have a Gilded Lotus. Doesn't help me cast Garth. Is good with untappers later.
Yep.
Timeless Lotus is just kind of a better version of that enters tapped. Taps for Wooburg. Is not in the deck currently. It might be outside of my price range. This is one I'm trying to build in paper, and I'm trying to play mostly cards that I own. So this one's not in there yet.
This is a good one to keep an eye out for in a trade binder.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I know you've got one.
No, I don't have one anymore. I traded it away.
Trade it? Oh, dang.
But one of our friends does have one, so if you can convince him to trade it.
I'll have to take a look. I thought, did it make its way back? I thought you guys traded back and forth.
No, not yet. That one hasn't made it back to me yet.
Oh, gotcha. The other one here is Chromatic Orrery, is like the other really big one. This is pretty... honestly, not that hard to cast. 7 mana is not that rough to get to, and then it's an instant Garth, which is really great.
That's pretty sweet, yeah.
But it is, it has to get out. So that's the struggle.
It's also if you have an untapper, it'll draw you 5 cards by itself.
If Garth is out, yeah, which is kind of sick. So, yeah, it's a cool one that I was excited about putting in this deck. This is all the way back from the OG Garth. I was kind of stoked on.
Cool.
While we're looking at the ramp, I just saw one of my favorite pieces of tech in this deck.
Ah, yes.
And it's Liquid Metal Torque.
Tell us why Liquid Metal Torque, a colorless mana rock, is a favorite.
Yes, colorless mana rock is particularly bad in Garth because it's not going to fix my colors. However, the second ability is the best part. You tap it, and target non-land permanent becomes an artifact in addition to its other types end of turn. Guess what we have stapled to Garth? Disenchant right here, which means that if we have Liquid Metal Torque out, at any moment if we have a white mana and a colorless mana, we could tap Liquid Metal Torque, turn any non-land permanent into an artifact, and then destroy it with Disenchant.
I've been hit by this. It does not feel good.
It's so awesome because Terror sometimes won't hit something because it's black. And so the way around that is, well, we're going to turn it into an artifact, and now Disenchant will... It's one of my favorite tech pieces in the deck. I love it.
It's cool. It works out really, really well.
We have a bunch of untappers. I think we need to talk about all of them. But we're playing Kiora. My favorite untapper of all time, Tyvar. It's an untapper that also gives your creatures haste for activated abilities, which is insane.
I can't tell you how many times I've wanted to put this in a deck since I've seen you play it. And then, like, the colors don't end up working out. Where I'm like, oh, that's right, it has black in it, and my deck doesn't have black in it.
Yeah, it is kind of weird colors for... I mean, it's very clearly an elf card, right? It's trying to be in, like, Golgari elves, but does really well in 5-color untappers, so I'm really stoked about this one. Like a Phaedo Alchemist, Kiora's follower. Derevi was a late-game inclusion that I'm really stoked about. We had talked about building. I talked about building a Derevi deck, and you were going to build a Kaikar deck at one point. We were going to kind of build some like sister decks, and Derevi ended up finding a place in this deck because I thought it was so cool. This one's a pseudo untapper, the Jolly Balloon Man. A pseudo untapper that will also reset Garth, because I can make a copy of Garth because it's not non-legendary creatures. I can just make a 1/1 copy of Garth. that I can activate.
You have to sacrifice the original Garth.
I'd have to sacrifice the original Garth. Yeah. But if I, in a pinch, if I need a copy of Garth or a copy of Marieki or a Lauren of the Third Path to get rid of another artifact, there's just like a lot of fun interactions with Jolly Balloon Man. I'm kind of stoked on that one in the deck. Vizier of Tumbling Sands, Face Stitcher. It's Seedborn Muse hasn't really come up a ton, but I'm excited. I'm excited to have that one do something. That's kind of all the cool stuff. I guess we're kind of at the end here. We've talked about just about everything.
Show us the. Let's go over all of the 3-color pip ones again for each color, and then let's talk about the excludes.
The ones that were originally 3-color pips. Some of them that we've taken out. You just got a sneak peek of those. Our 3-color pip spells. These two are the most recent includes. I talked with Kelton at length about which ones we thought we should include for these colors, because the ones I had included for these colors ended up being just like a little too problematic, and so they had to come out. And I'll let you think about those while we talk about Genesis Wave and Insurrection. Genesis Wave is X, green, 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 and you reveal the top X cards of your library, put any number of permanent cards with mana value X or less from among them on the battlefield. This doesn't say non-land permanents. That's insane. Then put all cards revealed this way that weren't put onto the battlefield into your graveyard. So
you run, honestly, for this being like a wizard deck, you're not running that many instants and sorceries.
No. Yeah, I'm running 18 total.
Which means that there are 80 permanents in your deck, so 80% of the cards that you look at, you're going to hit, and that's amazing.
Yeah, that's actually crazy. Yeah. I'm excited. This is one I've yet to play. This is the newest include.
Yep.
Fits really well in a big mana deck. Fits well with my vision of Garth too, of casting these big splashy spells. And Insurrection is the other one. This is our 3-red pip spell. Untap all creatures and gain control of them until end of turn. They gain haste until end of turn. Kind of just a cool finisher, but also ties into the untapping a little bit. We can untap all of our creatures, get some more value from them, and still swing in with all of our opponent's big creatures.
You can spend Bloom Tender mana to cast this and then untap it and get to spend it again and then swing out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I'm stoked. Sweet. I'm actually stoked about this one. I'm stoked to give this one a try. Should we talk about the ones these replaced? I think this is probably a good time to talk about the ones these replaced. Those would be Nyx Bloom Ancient. Nyx Bloom Ancient was
It has been this was an absolute terror in this deck.
Yes, Nyx Bloom Ancient paired with Bloom Tender, and bounce lands,
and Fabro Elder, and bounce lands, and untappers. Yeah,
it was just disgusting. Here's what ended up happening. Is if Garth made it a turn cycle and I had Nyx Bloom Ancient in hand, I would tap Garth to cast Black Lotus. I would use 4 mana, not from the Black Lotus, to cast Nyx Bloom Ancient. And then I would use the rest of my mana to cast a Haste Enabler and untappers, and then just generate tons of mana, untap Garth, regrowth a Doppelgang from my graveyard, cast a Doppelgang, get more Nyx Bloom Ancients and untappers and creatures, and then flicker Garth or something. Like it just it turned into kind of a 1-card win condition with Garth, which is very cool in like a higher power version of Garth. It was just far too consistent. I mean, sure, I'm not tutoring for it or anything, but every time I got an Nyx Bloom Ancient, I won a game. And I think
certainly felt that way.
Yeah, and so we talked about this a little bit, and I think the big thing here was that Nyx Bloom Ancient itself is very powerful, but like having that much mana is not always the most powerful thing, except for when you have an X draw spell stapled to your commander at all times, in addition to a regrowth that can get back stuff from your graveyard. Garth is
and especially where one of your main win cons is Doppelgang.
One of your main win cons is Doppelgang. Exactly. Yeah, that's also very true. So it just turned into Garth is just deceptively powerful enough of a commander and an engine in and of itself when you have enough mana that that Nyx Bloom I felt like I needed to take out to make this power level I wanted it to. It may go back in at some point in the future. We may feel that Genesis Wave and Insurrection aren't cutting it, and that Nyx Bloom is like a fine top end to this deck. I don't know that that's going to be the case. But that's the one we took out in place to replace with Genesis Wave. The other one I took out was Kiki Jiki. And let me tell you.
I can't imagine why Kiki Jiki got removed from a deck.
So can I be honest with you? I actually had taken it out originally, and then I put it back in because I looked at my deck and I thought I'm not playing Pestermite or anything like that. I have untappers, so I could get infinite tapped untappers with Kiki Jiki. But I am not playing Dramatic Reversal. I'm not playing any Impact Tremors effects. I just have a Kiki Jiki in the deck. This is fine. And then I played a game where I had Kiki Jiki in graveyard, and I cast a Hazel's Brewmasters. And I realized that wins you the game instantly because you get infinite hasty Brewmasters.
Oh my goodness, that's so crazy.
Which is insane. And so Kiki Jiki had to come out in favor of Brewmasters. I like Brewmasters, I think, more in the deck because it's not like as busted as Kiki Jiki. And Kiki Jiki it breaks too easily. It's so hard to play Kiki Jiki.
And there's probably other stuff it's gonna break with.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So Kiki Jiki had to come out, unfortunately. In terms of our other 3-color spells, we already talked about Final Showdown. That's our white spell.
Yep.
I've looked at other white spells. I've considered other white spells. I think this one counts. I'm counting this one because it's flavorful and white. It's a board wipe. It destroys everything.
It's cool.
In black, we have Demon of Dark Schemes that has recently replaced Massacre Worm in the deck. You might have seen that in the sideboard. Because it does the same thing as Massacre Worm, and it has an activated ability. Which are Hazel's Brewmasters and our
Agatha's
Soul Cauldron. Yeah. And just this deck is about tap abilities, but I'm counting it. I'm counting this one as an activated ability. Which is kind of fun, and it's got cool Reanimator stuff going on. And then our blue one we've already talked about is Arcanus. So that is cool. our 5 3-color pip spells.
That's
in the
fun.
deck.
I like it.
And that is Garth. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, are there any other notable exclusions you want to talk about?
Yeah, let me see. Other notable exclusions. I thought about including Niv Mizzet because it's 2 sets of 3-color pips. Dual Caster Mage was in here at one point. This isn't necessarily a power exclude. This is still a little bit left over from when I was pruning the deck of how some of the stuff I originally had put in it. You can kind of see the leftovers of the X spell theme here with Villainous Wealth and Exsanguinate. They didn't feel particularly Garth to me.
Sure.
And so I took them out in favor of the 2 ones that I thought were just better and fit the theme better. And then the last one here is Burgeoning. It turns out that when you're playing bounce lands...
You know what? I forgot about this because I like Burgeoning a lot because I like ramp spells. I think they're really awesome. And I think Burgeoning is one of the more powerful ramp spells.
Sure.
But I also don't think it's like so powerful that you can't play it. And then I remembered that you were playing bounce lands.
Yes. See, yeah, so if you just clear your hand of lands, you get 3 lands out or whatever, Burgeoning is not that bad. Like, sure, it's basically a Soul Ring if you have enough lands to support it on turn 1.
That costs you cards.
That costs you cards. That's true. That do cost you cards. So you're down on cards in hand. However, if those lands are bounce lands and surveil lands, for example, you play a surveil land you play a land on your turn, you play Burgeoning. And then you play a surveil land when the next player plays their land, and you surveil. And then you play a bounce land, get your surveil land back, and then you play another surveil land. And then on your next turn, if you have another bounce land, you do that again. And now you're just like...
It's pretty gross.
It's pretty disgusting. So I took that one out, and the thing I put in favor of Burgeoning was Spelunking.
You did put Spelunking in.
I put Spelunking in the deck.
Oh, I didn't know that. That makes me so happy. That's cool.
Which I think is really fun with the bounce lands especially, because they enter untapped, and so you can immediately start using them.
It's really good.
And it's a ramp spell. It's a ramp spell that cantrips, so pretty solid.
If you want to know a fun tech with Spelunking...
Yeah, tell me.
If you have multiple land drops, you can, and you only have a bounce land in hand, you can play the bounce land, tap it for mana in response to its triggered ability, and then return it to your hand and then play it again.
Whoa. That's really sick tech.
It's so cool. It's really cool tech.
That's such sick tech.
Yeah.
What? Okay.
I don't think you have any extra land drop cards in here, but if you doppelgang Azusa, then you'll know that you can do that with your bounce lands.
Yeah. Okay. That's so. I have to say, so far an all-star in this deck has been doppelgang. Since we're talking about Doppelgang.
Cool. I love this card. I don't mind losing to this card. And I'm so sad that I haven't found a deck to put it in yet.
The thing is it feels so situational. In Garth, it's phenomenal. Because most of my stuff is like trying to benefit me anyway. Like, it's trying to like kind of have like a feedback loop of tap, untap, tap, untap. And so as soon as this gets in that loop and can like, it exponentially grows the loop. And I'll tell you the craziest part about this. A game I won the other day was with a Doppelgang. And someone had out a it was with people from our Discord. I don't want to shout out their names because I've not asked them. But the player in the seat after me had out a what is the one that doubles the mana that you create? A mana doubler of some kind.
Sure.
I can't remember the name of it. Gosh dang it. Let me search it really quick. I have to know.
Not doubling cube. It's not the activated ability one.
No, it's not the activated ability one. It's like...
Is it a Mirari's Wake style
It's
card?
Yeah, it's a Mirari's Wake style effect. It's CMC 5. It's in green.
Mana Reflections?
Mana Reflections.
Okay.
Yes, it was a Mana Reflections. And I had just cast a Gilded Lotus. And then I cast a Doppelgang, X equals 3. And so I created 3 copies of Mana Reflections and 3 copies of Gilded Lotus. And so each Gilded Lotus tapped for 12 mana.
That's
crazy. No. I had 3 copies.
It would have been more than that, right?
So yeah, each Gilded Lotus tapped for 36 mana, or 24 mana. Because it was from 3 to 6, from 6 to 12, from 12 to 24.
Yeah.
And then I had yet to cast Regrowth, so I just regrowthed Garth and cast another Doppelgang and cast another Doppelgang.
That's crazy. So I love that about this spell. I love how well it works with Garth. I love that it works with big mana. I love the regrowth thing. And I love that it's also easy to interact with.
Doppelgang?
Yeah. Like you can counter it. Like
yeah,
it's
if you've
like
got counter magic, yeah.
And you've dumped tons of mana into it.
Yeah.
So it's like it has blowout potential. It's not like an unbeatable thing. Like I sudden substitutioned this once.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
I gave it to another player. That was really fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
I like this card a lot. I feel like it's an excellent win con for this power level that you're going for, but that consistently ends games. But doesn't feel bad to me, at least.
Yeah, I think there's a world where it could feel bad. The thing I felt particularly bad about was that when I played with this play group, we had just come off of our episode where we were talking about the bracket system and how we thought they needed to put precons in their own bracket. And so I had said, hey, like in my interpretation of bracket 2, this is a bracket 2 because bracket 3 is game changers. Like this is the top of bracket 2.
We have been talking about how bracket 2 should include precons.
And that was like just such a poor representation of this deck, and I felt so bad about that. And so I still have this like sour taste in my mouth a little bit, and so I'm really trying to and that was part of the reason I took out, stuff like Kiki Jiki and Nyx Bloom Ancient, is because that was kind of the last straw for both of those cards. Was like they were just doing too much in these decks. In this deck.
But you also said that you communicate this as being a bracket 3 at this point.
I do, yes. So I've also changed my communication about this. So I think I'm feeling better about it. But yeah, this is my favorite deck that I think I've ever built, and I'm so happy with where it's landed. Sure, I'm gonna have some extra tweaks to this deck, but I am really stoked with the amount of themes and this, like both mechanical themes it has, but also like flavor themes and sub themes that it has that I really
and
like.
Those all work together. It's tough to have a deck that has that many like themes that it actually feels cohesive and synergistic.
Yeah, I'm happy that this one has turned out to be that way. And all credit to Garth, because Garth is just really powerful. I think people don't understand how good Garth is, and I think this is my like love letter to Garth and how powerful Garth can be in like a mid power shell. So build Garth, people. It's so cool. Proxy this list. Play it if you want. I'm pretty stoked about where it's landed.
So cool. Thank you so much, Spencer. Thanks for walking us through this deck. I hope other people take a chance to play it or build their own Garth deck list. It's such a great commander.
Yeah, everybody, thank you. Well, thanks for letting me talk about it. Thanks for letting me nerd out. If you guys stuck around this long, thank you for listening. This has been like a real passion project of mine. Been a couple years in the making of just trying to like figure out where I want Garth to be. So, and of course it might change, but thank you for sticking around. Thank you for listening. Everybody, thank you for listening always. Whenever you come, whichever episode you listen to, thank you for joining us. Please make sure to join us in our Discord. We've been getting so many more people in our Discord. We've been getting games with more and more people in our Discord. It's been really fun. I've been trying to make more time for that. Yeah, it's just a fun place to be. Like, we've got a really cool community going on in there. People that are showing off their cool cards and talking about the pre-releases and stuff like that. So please come join us there. Thank you for listening. Remember to like and subscribe. Share this with your friends. And until next time, remember to always pay the one.